Hello,
Hello, everyone.
I'm Ashleigh,
And I'm Toniah.
and you're listening to another episode of
Hue I Do.
the podcast brought to you by your favorite cousins on the bride side. Welcome to another episode of Hue I Do, the podcast that's going to tell you the realities of a good, qualified, and experienced wedding vendor and why this is ultimately the best thing for you when it comes to your wedding day. As always, we drop episodes every Wednesday. If you love Hue I Do, if you're one of our Hue Boos, we suggest that you leave us a little token of appreciation by heading to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and leaving us reviews and stars. Today we have a very special guest. Guest, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I am Cassandra Richardson. I am the owner and certified wedding planner of Cassandra Nichole Events. I have been in the industry since 2000, so an OG, as they would say, and I'm super excited to be here.
We are super excited to have you. I think it was either Toniah or maybe it was me. I can't remember. I remember we shouted you out.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say 21 or 22. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it was a minute ago, but yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, who is this? And then I went down the rabbit hole of like finding out who you guys are and have been fans ever since. So thank you for that shout out.
You're welcome, because likewise. Likewise. Well, you've already told us how long you've been in the industry, but where are you located?
So currently I am in Arizona and I service the great state of Arizona. Previously, I was in Illinois and like outside Chicago area. I've done weddings up in Wisconsin because that's like our little neighbor there. But I go wherever my clientele happens to be, but primarily I am in outside the Phoenix area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I figure, like, I'm just thinking there's probably certain times of the year where it's like so hot that.
Yes. So I explained this to people because I've only been here for, it'll be 7 years. And I explained to people, everybody's like, oh, I'm going to be a June bride. And I'm like, you don't want to be a June bride here, honey, because you'll be melted. Your cake will not make it. Like, your guests will be passing out. So definitely, I say May is starting to push it, but May through September is kind of that hot range in there that you could go either which way. Like last year, our July, every day was triple digits. So yeah, definitely there is a different off season for us than it is for like the rest of the nation, pretty much. So yeah, don't do it. Matter of fact, I put it now into when I'm like doing my interviews with clients. I'm like, what's your wedding date? And anyone who says July, June, I'm like, that needs to be an all indoor event. I can't take it outside. That's ridiculous. And neither can your guests. So
Yeah, that was my main reason. Granted, we're in the Atlanta area. But I was like, I do not want to sit outside because literally, like, although it's not your type of hot in Arizona, it's still hot. The sun is beaming, face is just melting. I was like, absolutely not. And so I was like, at my wedding, we got to be indoors. Because once I sweat, I don't stop.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm sorry, but there is not a makeup artist in the world that can beat 110 heat in Phoenix.
Yes.
So definitely. And guests passing out and getting sick.
Yes.
It's a real thing. Yep. It's a real thing.
Wow. Do you actually have like a lot of inquiries for outdoor weddings?
We do, because of the fact the views out here, I'm not going to lie, are amazing. And everyone is trying to get those sunset pictures, which are absolutely like breathtaking. You got the mountains in the background and just like the nature around. So outdoor, we have a lot more outdoor venues than we do indoors because everybody wants to be outside and to get those shots. So definitely.
again, we're glad to have you today.
Yes.
Can't wait to get into this conversation. But first, you must play everybody's favorite game, which is This or That.
Yes.
For those that don't know, This or That is like those Instagram games where you choose between one option or the other, but because you are our very special guest, you're going to go first. And then we'll let Toniah go, and then I'll go, and then we'll do one more round before we dive into our convo for tonight. So, you ready?
I'm ready. Make it a good one.
Okay. So think of this. I mean, you could think of this from the perspective of a planner, or you could think of this from the perspective of you're planning your own wedding. It's up to you.
Okay.
So, would you prefer to get a dual wedding planner, floral designer, or would you prefer to get a dual caterer, baker?
That's an easy one. Planner, floral designer.
Okay, why?
Both instances. It doesn't matter. Because that is your basis of your wedding when you think about it. Like, food is one part of it. And for people who are like, quote unquote, foodies, yes, that's really important. But you were talking about the ambiance of your wedding when you talk about designing it and bringing in florals. I was talking to one of my florist friends and I was like, I did an event and I'm like, I want all your senses to be engaged. And so the florist really helped with that, because then she's bringing in like flowers that smell a certain way. So as you're moving through your event, you're smelling the different flowers, you're getting to see, there's different textures. Catering, great, is fine. Cake's fantastic if people eat cake. It's fine. It's dandy. But like for the main thing, I would definitely want a designer florist. You could serve me a cupcake. I don't care. But yeah, definitely florist designer. Yes.
Okay. That's not a bad answer. Okay, Toniah, what about you? Would you prefer the dual floral designer planner, or the baker caterer?
I'm going to say the baker and caterer, just because I kind of feel like they could handle the food part of it, and we can actually have all of our meetings and we can talk about the cake and the food together, or basically like killing two birds with one stone. Is that the saying? Two birds with one stone? Okay, yeah. Basically doing all that at one time, getting that out of the way. But I think I would separate my my planner and my florist. Yeah, we'll do it that way. All right.
That sounds like a good idea as well. I'm going to go with Cassandra. I would love to have my planner and floral designer in one, because I'm a creative. I would love them to be a creative. I feel like we can make creative magic together, so I'm thinking of it from that perspective. I think the baker caterer is like also like a good option, but I'm more visual than hungry, though the food is still important. So I think that's kind of where I'm leaning here. So we're kind of split here. We'll see how we go with the second round. So this is more for the wedding dinner for the vendors. So would you prefer to have the vendors at a table at your reception, or in a room in the back with the other vendors?
I didn't even need to hear the end of the question. So I, earlier in my career, I would have said, oh yeah, just have like a table for us in the back, blah, blah, blah. Now more into that, like, where's the chef's table at in the back? Let me go sit at that, because we're not a guest. That's another table that you have to decorate. You have to worry and consider space-wise, which you don't need. Your vendors are not going to be at the table, so there's really no point in having a table there. And then we like to go in the back, and when we're eating our meal, have conversation among each other. How's the day going for you? Is there anything you're seeing? We kind of check points with each other, and it gives us just a minute to like regroup, because it's also a very long day for us. And so for us to have that minute to just disengage for a minute is like priceless. So definitely give us a table in the back. Table, a stool, somewhere that I can sit down for a hot 10 minutes and like just wolf something down and get back at it. That's me.
To be honest, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And from the bride's perspective, as you stated, that's another table that we have to decorate. We would have to rent more plates, more utensils. And so, but then also, I feel like for the vendors, I feel like they're moving around a lot. So they may come eat something and then go back and do something and then maybe come back to their plate or maybe get something else. That way it's not as like, oh, like you gotta like, oh, excuse me, like you get, I don't know, you're not getting up and interrupting like the guests or the, or the bride and groom because they may be making speeches or, whatever.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like having a separate room in the back where they can come and go as they please is like a win-win, to be honest. So yes, I agree. I agree with you.
And I'm not gonna lie to you, like I have a lot of fun in my back rooms at events because sometimes, depending on, where it's at, a hotel or whatever, sometimes we kind of get special treatment back there. They're like, let me go ahead and get you this. And we're like, oh, thank you, So yeah, we'll take the back room any day. Okay.
Well, good.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to start off the first question. What are the pros and cons of a new or inexperienced wedding vendor? This is going to be a good one. I'm ready to hear this answer.
Listen, this was the question that, like, for the longest, I was like really trying to think hard because I was like I like to be like glass half full and be like kind of positive about it. But I really only found one. So, if you guys think of something else, jump in and let me know.
Okay.
And it's usually that they're less cost intensive. We'll say that. And so if that is something that you honestly can't afford in your budget, that's a pro for you. Okay. Sometimes if you are a super nice, good-hearted person, and you're like, you know what, I want to help this person build their portfolio up. So I'm gonna go ahead and give them reign over my wedding. That's fantastic. So that's really kind of the only pros I see on that. And the way that would you'd get like a really good deal, I was thinking, is if the person who's starting their new company maybe worked as like an intern or something with another company, or they had worked with the planner for a long time and now they broke off and they're going to do their own business. So you might get somebody who's a little bit cheaper that way. So those are the only pros I can say. And I'm not saying this in a negative way or anything to younger planners or newer planners, because I was there. So I'm thinking out of things that happened to me in my business growing as well. And some of the things to think about con-wise, you're not dealing with someone who is experienced unless, like I said, they've worked in shadow with somebody. And it used to be, we were very much so, I would say, in competition with each other. But now I feel in these recent years, planners are more likely to work with each other. We're able to say and have like these networks build up where we're like, hey, you know what? I can't do this wedding on this day. Who's available? Hey, I need help on my wedding. So, we kind of like work together. And so as now an experienced planner, we're able to give those connections. We're able to give that sense of calm because our brides and grooms are really, they're stressed out about it. I don't care who you are. Your wedding day is stressful. And so if you have somebody who comes with that energy of they're kind of unsure of themselves because maybe this is their first event or their first time by themselves, as an experienced planner, we don't come in there with that stress because we're already like, I got my timeline done. I already know here, I know this is going on. We've seen any potential problems that might have occurred, and we've already had it happen to us, so we know how to. It doesn't become an emergency. We're like, oh, okay, this is what's wrong. Boop, boop, here's how you fix it. So I think that that's really like one of the greatest things that people don't think about when they're looking for, especially like a wedding planner. Same thing with a photographer. I mean, can you imagine that being their first job and they don't know, have enough battery packs? They don't have, their SIM card ends up getting corrupted. That, like all this stuff happens, and then your wedding is like gone because this is their first wedding. They didn't know how to bring backups. They didn't have the ability to have a second shooter. You are risking so much by having someone who's not experienced. So I think that kind of outweighs everything. Do you want to really be able to look back on your wedding and be like, oh my God, I was able to enjoy it. And like, here's the proof.
You never know what to do in that situation just because everyone is brand new at some point.
Yep.
It's just a matter of how well can they run your wedding on that day, and did they do a good job? Of course, not all the times, but of course there are going to be like some things where they may mess up on, or they may have like some mistakes. I mean, but then like they learn and grow from it. But
what's your risk tolerance when it comes to? And some people are like, yeah, we don't care. Okay, well there you go. That's a perfect client for you.
Yeah.
But your wedding, that just feels so dicey. Like, because what if it doesn't go right? Then you don't have your photos or your videos or whatever the thing is because you wanted to help. Like, I think a birthday party or something like that. That's kind of where they could test that out.
Yep.
Not the wedding.
That's what I say.
We spent too much on this whole thing to be cutting corners in a way that could have some long-term impact. But
and think about it this way, when we talk about like kind of like in that community, I periodically will get emails from somebody who's like, hey, I want to do what you're doing, can I come and help out? And I think that that's fantastic, because as somebody who's been here, if like this is your first wedding, there's a couple of like I'm involved with Certified Wedding Society, and so we have our own like board, and so they'll be like, hey, it's my first wedding out, do you guys have any tips? And we're quick to be like, hey, you're in my area, I'm free, do you want me to help like pop in and help? Here's my number if you have questions. We're getting more to the point where people are trying to like pitch in. So they're saying, hey, we know you're new, so let me try and help you get over that little rough patch. Because you're right, everybody has to start somewhere. It's a lot different than it used to be. It used to be just like you're just kind of thrown to the wolves. But now I think in our community, we're really trying to like educate and help each other out so that we all can say, because one bad wedding planner, one bad photographer can kind of ruin it for other people, because they'll be like, I had, and oh my God, don't do it, So that's just something we need to kind of like think of. Yes, everybody starts from somewhere, but like, can we all like help each other out at the beginning?
That makes sense.
So
this next question, I know will hit differently depending on where the listener is listening from or where they're from. But with Toniah and I being kind of in the metro Atlanta area, we see a lot of luxury wedding vendors and we see a lot of celebrity wedding vendors. And sometimes you don't know, what does that really mean? And if that's something you need for your wedding, because when you think of your wedding, it is mostly in the Black community. It's a glamorous, like very elegant, formal event. So luxury or even sometimes celebrity can feel synonymous and make you think that's the type of wedding vendor you need. But like, can you help us understand, like, what are the differences and is that actually like a good thing?
So there's a lot to unpack in this whole celebrity luxury thing. And it comes down to two things. One, where you're at, your location wise. And two, what finances you're working with. Because bottom line, this all comes down to money. I'm just going to be honest with you. So like, I like to think of you have like your DIY, your budget brides, then you're going to get into like your premium couples, and then you'll have your luxury couples, and then you have your ultra luxury couples. Okay. And like you said, you're in Atlanta, so your medium wedding cost is going to look a lot different than New York, LA, even Phoenix, versus, in the middle of Montana somewhere. So in the middle of Montana, I could take $60,000, and that's going to be like a premium luxury type event, right? In Atlanta, you're barely like getting a venue, barely, right? So those words of throwing out, oh, it's a luxury this, Amber, it's all relative to what you have in your pocket. Because if I'm a billionaire, like $1 million, $2 million wedding is not good. That's okay. It's going to be pocket change. If you're working at McDonald's and scraping it, and I come tell you, hey, you know what, I think your bill is going to be about $60,000, you're going to pass out. So it's all about where you're at and how much money you have. Now, when you throw into, oh, I'm a celebrity planner, I'm a celebrity photographer, whatever. Again, that goes back to the person they're referring to. So does that mean that their clients are only celebrities? Does that mean that in their genre, they're considered like celebrity or like the echelon of whatever? Like this is like the top photographer right now. This is the top wedding planner hot right now. So that kind of throws in a whole different thing, but it all boils down to what is your financial comfort zone? I can have something that's considered luxury for me that's not going to be luxury for you. So I hate it when people are like, oh, I'm a luxury. What are you really? Or is that in your mind, you're thinking you're a luxury, whatever. Are you a premium? Like, do you serve, premium clients that have higher budgets? Absolutely. Are your clients only celebrities? Oh my goodness. Well, bless your heart. If that's what you got, all celebrities, good for you. So I think all those words are relative. It's all about the person and what they can actually afford.
That makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, here in Atlanta, if you go downtown,
Mm-hmm.
you will see a celebrity, so like it's nothing to see a celebrity here in Atlanta and even like the Atlanta metro area. But I would not reach out to a celebrity wedding planner because I know that comes with a great cost.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would stay far away from the celebrity planners because I already know that it's not going to be in my budget,
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I understand. But if I went to, I don't know, Oklahoma or Montana, like you said, or Alaska, and I probably would reach out to a celebrity wedding planner out there because I know it's going to be a different price point. Yes. And that's probably something that I can afford. So, yeah.
Yeah. People don't always think about that. We're like, okay, but like when they send out, a bride will send out, this is what the going rate for wedding is. And I'm like, well, but where are you at? Because, right now, like the average is like $35,000 or $39,000.
Yeah.
Where? Like,
right.
Oklahoma, so it's like you have to put all that into context. Where you're at and what you can afford. Because I'm the type of person, I don't want you like going into debt to get married. So you need to start thinking like, is this going to be luxury for one day? Or can I have something maybe a little bit toned down and it's super nice and I still can like pay my mortgage like the next month,
And quiet as it's kept, a lot of vendors use luxury.
Yeah.
And they don't be luxury.
Yeah.
They're real regular.
Yeah. But that goes back to like marketing and like philosophy. When And this was like, so I don't even know where I got this example from, but like when I heard it, I was like, exactly. So like you think about Louis Vuitton, Bentleys, they're not doing commercials. You're not going to find anywhere in their advertising where they're like, this is a luxury handbag. I'm a luxury car. Because you don't need to say it. To be honest with you, if you really are luxury, you don't need to say it. Like people are like, oh, that's luxury right there. You know, so by you having to put that into your like byline and stuff everywhere, forget it.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Listen, that was a word right there. That was a gem.
That's quiet luxury. That's what it is. Like, I don't need to see logos and crap to know that, like, oh, that's a well-made, that's a nice shirt. You know? Same thing with your vendors. I shouldn't have to run around and be like, I'm a luxury wedding planner. No. You should look at my profile of work. You should see what I do. And you're like, you know what? I'm willing to spend whatever money she lays on the table for me because that makes it worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why do you think brides are drawn or attracted to these types of vendors?
Because they want to be on the gram. If they want to have their 15 minutes to go viral on TikTok and be talked about in Bride and Martha Stewart magazine. And that's fine. I mean, who doesn't want to be published? You know, who don't want to have, you know, their 15 minutes of fame where it's like, oh, look, I did that. That's fine. But it's not getting back to the gist of why you're getting married, which I talk about all the time with my clients. Like, you are about to make one of the most important decisions you'll ever make in your life. You're about to start into an actual marriage, which is a lifelong, hopefully, you know, arrangement. This is one day out of the year for you guys. So there are those people who are like, no, but I want this to be all about me. I want this to be about my look. I want this to be, and that's fine because that's how they are. But I think that's why people are really drawn to that because they want to be listed up there with the celebrities. Like, okay, maybe I'm not a quote unquote celebrity for sure, but if I could be on somebody's TikTok with 7 million views, I'm somebody. Is it that important? Not really. But people are drawn to that.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah. And I don't think that I think it has a lot to do with like how we were talking about earlier before we started, like how things have changed because it is such a big, huge thing now for you to have that social media presence, for you to be noticed as a person versus, you know, back in the 80s or 90s, you know, you were somebody if you were like mentioned in like the society page, right? Or like you put in the newspaper, so-and-so got engaged. Like that was like the big thing. But now we want it instant. We want to see, you know, in big flashy colors. And that social media thing it's a big thing. People want it.
I swear we could probably do 50 episodes on social media because there's so much good, but a lot of it can make things complicated when they don't have to be. Now, because you are an experienced vendor and you have been in the game for decades, you've seen the trends, you know what's what, and you're not going to tell us a lie. We got to talk about this one question because it pops up all the time. People been throwing out this. They say it all the time like it's truth. I want to know, if you call it a wedding, does that automatically run up the cost?
You want to know if when I pick up the phone, they're like, hi, I'm doing a wedding. I'm like, let me flip to my wedding pages. Here's my wedding.
Your budget is already like, oh, here's a 70% markup just because you said wedding. That's what the people are thinking. So if that's not true, if it's really not the case, like we know it's not, tell us why. Tell us why.
It is not, at least not from that's not what I do. One, because I base price on the amount of work that I know I'm going to have to get in and do. So, like, a kid's birthday party is not going to cost as much as me planning a 8-hour wedding day. That's just not. So when you look at like my pricing, I have pricing for parties and that's what it is. And then up here is, yes, for weddings, because now I'm getting into, it's like 200 hours to plan a wedding. 200, like, and that's like if you're good, you're not doing some other stuff versus the maybe 8-10 hours that I might have to do, research and everything for a kid's party. So that's not the truth. And the reason why weddings, people are like, well, why are weddings so expensive? I don't understand this. The time that it goes into, all the little back things that you don't think of. Let's take a DJ. Why is a DJ so expensive? Well, he not only has to know about lighting, he has to know about sound. So he's worried about, is the building compliant electrically wise? People aren't thinking about that. If it's outdoors, is it shaded so his equipment doesn't get hot? So there's things that people just don't think about that goes into planning a wedding. So that's what makes it expensive. Wedding flowers. People want, oh my God, but I really want like peonies because peonies are so beautiful. Peonies are expensive in themselves. Why? Because they only grow a certain time. They only grow at a certain place. So if you're getting them, you're trying to get them off season. You have times now where we just went through a flower shortage in the industry where you couldn't get stuff. So now you got to tag in that. Now gas is more expensive, so it costs more to ship them. Like there's all these other things that people just don't think about when it comes to budget and how expensive something is. So long story short on that one, the minute you say wedding, it does not jack our prices up. It's just the cost of doing business.
So basically, there's more required because it's a wedding. A wedding ain't a birthday party. A wedding isn't a graduation party. So it makes sense to me. It makes sense.
But also the fact that you said that it takes about 200 hours and, to actually plan a wedding.
Yeah.
That's like a lot, 200 in comparison to 10 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The price is definitely going up.
Right. Because also think about it. Like if it's a birthday party, you're not going to start planning 9-12 months in advance.
Yeah.
You'll probably start planning it maybe 3 months out. If that. Right. But a wedding, like it's not the same. It's not the same.
It's not. And we started, and this all wraps back to being educated, being certified, like going through like classes. I took a class last year just on pricing our packages. And we went through and we started listing out like all the things we do. And the reason why, we're going to give you so many hours are dedicated to this. We're thinking about it. We put it like this way to people. So you go and plan your wedding and you're like, well, I need to shop for a venue. So you got all the hours of getting on the internet, getting on social media, making the appointments, running around and spending the mileage to go. You're probably, as an inexperienced person, gonna go probably see 5-6 different venues. You have a planner. We have a conversation with you. Okay, I see the vibe you're going to with. I know off the bat that this venue, and this venue can give you what you need. So now you've cut out all of that time running around and effort, and one person has told you, hey, here's your 3 options. I feel like you're probably going to want this one. You go see it and you're like, oh, look at that. Done. So people don't think about all the extra time and research that we do for places. If I give you a caterer, for example, and let's say, like I had one of my clients, they're like, we want to do Cuban food. Okay, so I just can't run out to, any caterer. I have to sit and talk. Do you know about Cuban food? Do you have an idea for a menu? Do you know how to source it and prepare it correctly? Everybody's not going to know how to do it. So instead of her spending her time doing that, I did that. So there you go again, hours put into whatever preparation you need That's why we charge the reason we do. Because it takes a lot. It does.
Yeah.
And it ultimately is saving you time and money.
Mm-hmm. And for those full-timers who can't take off in the middle of the day to go talk to a vendor.
It's the convenience of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, when you talk about, like, what you do and you guys don't have times, one of my very first clients she was an emergency room doctor, and he was, like, the fire chief of one of the towns that lived around her. You can't get them on hey, you know what, we're going to have this appointment at this time. It just didn't work. And she knew that. And so that's why she goes, this is why we really need a planner, because she didn't have the time, like the mental, like after she gets done with her shifts, she's like, I don't have the mental, like, capacity to start sitting here and thinking about, oh, do they serve chicken or fish? And like, she just didn't have the capacity for it.
So and so you just don't care no more. You don't care.
You don't care. She was one of my best clients, because literally I would give her 2 options and she would be like, B, and that was it. It was great for her. It was great for me. Like, fantastic. Here's my credit card. Because they don't understand, or they do understand a lot of times then when they hire us, they understand the time commitment, the research it takes. We're not going to talk about mileage, because I go and I visit different venues, and like take the time to like ask them all these crazy questions. Like, I'm in their bathrooms. I always tell people, I'm like, oh no, I want to see the entire thing. Like, I want to know how many stalls you have in your restrooms. I want to make sure that it's got good water pressure and you guys soap dispensers feel like these are things that I look at when I'm going, So they don't understand that that's all the things that they just don't have to worry about. And that's what I charge them
real.
For. Yeah.
That's so real.
Yeah. So many things that you don't think about, because brides, this is for the most part, this is going to be like their first time doing it, versus us who do it, 8, 9, 10 times a year for however many years. Again, that's where that stress comes. We're able to see and predict, hey, you know what, maybe we need to do this because of that. I'm looking at this, you know what she says, I remember her talking about grandma, so maybe we need to make sure that this is handicap accessible here instead of there. Like, there's so many things that we just automatically think of, and you as a client are paying us for our knowledge and our experience and our education. And it's worth it. But I might be a little bit biased on that. But I feel like it is.
No, it's worth it.
It is.
It's definitely worth it. Yeah. So how should wedding vendors educate their clientele and prospective clients?
Back to social media is a good one. I'm not anti it. I'm on social media. I love it. And having those like really good conversations. So like, I like to have I break my conversations up with my clients in little chunks because I know it's overwhelming to them. So I'll say, you know what, let's talk about just this aspect of your wedding. And I'm going to ask them a lot of questions. And every time I get done with a call, they're like, you gave us stuff that we didn't even think about. And that's how I educate you guys, because I don't want stuff to come up at your wedding day and it's a surprise to you. Or you be like, oh my God, I didn't think about it. Like, that's why we're here, to cut that out. So our job as a professional is to educate. And we do that through social media. We do that through our client consults and our meetings that we have. We do that when I, take on a new client. I'm sending them out like a brochure that says, hey, this is how, you need to make sure you're getting your marriage certificate. You need to make sure this is happening. You need to make sure, this is a huge one for whatever reason lately, your officiant can actually marry you. Because so many times they're like, oh, my friend from college. And I'm like, that's fantastic. Are they ordained? I just don't get it. They're like, no. Okay. Well, that's going to be a conversation we need to have with them. So it's just that taking the time to say, okay, this is not my first rodeo. So I'm going to ask you questions that are probably going to seem a little strange. But I promise you, once I get done asking you these and you're like, oh, I never thought of that. things will go better. So it is our duty to educate our clients and potential brides and grooms and potential wedding planners, photographers, whoever. We need to educate each other.
Very true.
Mm-hmm. And it's really nice. I think sometimes like people are like, oh, do you like looking at, I love looking at, there's a florist that I follow. And she shows like behind the scenes of how she does her clipboards for all the orders and how she pulls her flowers and how she does that. And as somebody, I don't do flowers, but I like watching her process, because then for me, I can also go through, and when we sit down with a quote from a florist and they're like, it's going to cost X amount of dollars, and people are in sticker shock. And I can, because I've educated myself on their process, explain to them, well, let me explain a little bit more of why this is going to cost this. Your flowers are flying in from Argentina. You're going to, it's out of season. Here in the desert, we don't have there's not a lot of native stuff to us. So it's like, this is all not native to this area. So it has to be flown in, and then they're like, oh, I understand. So it's really like our responsibility, if we're going to call ourselves professionals, that we educate the people around us so that they know.
That makes sense as well.
Yeah, that's when they said, like, it's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it. Like, that's sometimes how I feel, but it's easier to have conversations in with people when they're like, okay, so now I understand. Yes. And now we can have a civilized conversation about it, and we can get things done.
And you don't know what you don't know. So, yeah.
Even as wedding professionals, we're like, we don't know a lot of stuff. So that's why it's important for us to keep educating ourselves. We keep educating ourselves on, like I said, other vendors in this industry, because things change and it's just the easiest way to do business. Learn your industry. It's better for everybody.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I for sure agree. All right. So, final question.
Mm-hmm.
How do qualified veteran wedding planners, even such as yourself, or wedding vendors in general, how do they stand out from those other vendors that may be newer, maybe way cheaper, or they don't have that same amount of experience?
Mm-hmm. So, and this is just from my personal experience. I'm not calling out other people. I'm not, pointing fingers or anything. So we stand out, one, through our work, getting out there and networking with places. How I was trained is we have what we call those preferred lists. How do people get on the list? We need to see your work. We need to make sure that you're doing business correctly. We need to make sure you know your stuff. That's for us. That's also for the vendors we work with. So then when it comes time to, you run into a bride or groom who says, well, you know what? I just talked to so-and-so and they are going to do my wedding for $500. Okay. All right. That's fine. However, here's the things, and you bring it back as almost like a question to them. So do they have this? Do they have experience? Do they have insurance? Are they insured? Are they on other people's lists? You want to get their background too, so that your client is kind of thinking about it. You're like, you know what? No, they don't. They're $500. Or you'll say, oh, you're getting married at such and such venue? Oh, did they already know that you need to be out of there by 10 o'clock? Do they know that the loading dock, you have to do this, this, and this? And a lot of times they'll be like, no, because they don't know. So it's not a way of showing yourself up, but then you have to show your experience and your knowledge. So you do that by social media. You do that by educating the people you talk to, and getting out and doing stuff like this, because, hey, podcasts, writing articles and blogs and stuff is a great way for you to get out and share your knowledge, your experience, versus somebody who doesn't have that. Again, not pointing fingers at anyone. or trying to make anyone feel bad, but you got to get out there and do the work.
Yeah. Yeah. But going back to what Toniah said from the beginning, everyone does have to start from somewhere. However, if you really feel like you're committed to this, you really want to do it, you're going to put in the work. You're going to find other planners or other vendors that you can shadow, that you can get that experience on, that doesn't mess up somebody's big day because you wanted to take a gander. One out of three or one out of four wedding planners became wedding planners because they planned their own wedding, and now they're like, I am so in love with this. I just want to do this for other people. And then it's like, do you really? Do you really? Do you want to put in the work for this?
But I will say that there are some really good wedding planners who have started out because they planned their wedding. But they're amazing at what they do. However, there are some that need a little bit more guidance, a little bit more work. However, they can become experienced one day.
Yeah.
Maybe just not today, but yeah.
Like Beyonce said, it could be both. Like, it is the reality. It is true. And it should be a thing where if you realize that, that was me, then you're fine with it. Especially if you were one of the vendors that decided, I am really interested in this. I do really want to, like, do this for a living. Like, I have found something that satisfies a professional or a creative craving that I never knew existed until I went through planning my own wedding. That, I feel like, what I say, 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4 wedding planners evolve because they plan their own wedding. I think of that group of wedding planners, half of them are the ones that do really want to put in the work and they really want to, like, do this. And the other half just like the novelty of what like all the feelings and the stuff around weddings. They're the ones that are, I think we're now, because of how the wedding industry has evolved, how social media has evolved, how all of this has changed, we're seeing it in different areas as well, meaning content creators that are content creators because they once planned their wedding, or they once, they had their wedding. They might have had a content creator, or maybe that was right before their time, and now they're excited about all that. And they still miss the fun and the novelty of what weddings provide, or the ones that create bachelorette items or bridal party items because they realized when they were going through that process, they didn't have it. I mean, honestly, I'll even take that. Hue I Do. That evolved because I was engaged and I realized this was a thing that didn't exist. So I think for all of us, it manifests in different ways. Some of us are more serious about it and others aren't. Because look at us. Almost 5 years in, we still talk about weddings. We've been married. On the other hand, there are some that do it because, oh my gosh, it's a fun thing. It's a novelty. And then because it wasn't fully planned out, a year from now, they ain't think about it no more. They're not content creating no more. They're not planning nobody's weddings no more. They're not podcasting anymore. Whatever the thing is, because it was that moment in time.
Here's an example for you. Okay, my son calls me the greatest detective in Casa Grande. That's where I live, right? Okay, because I can solve all of those 1 hour detective TV shows in like the first 10 minutes. That doesn't make me a detective, okay? I don't get a badge and a gun just because I can do that. So just because you just got married and you think that you could put something together in a Google Doc, that does not make you a wedding planner. That's just what I'm going to say. Quote me if you want.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. All the mics drop. We just walked away. Episode over. No, that was perfect. That was perfect.
Just saying. Now, I'm not throwing shade on them because you're right. If they really want to do something, I think about years ago going to expos, wedding expos, and seeing, 2 or 3 other planners there. Are they still in business? No. Because they didn't want to go and put the work in. They didn't want to get educated. They wanted to be like, oh, well, I can do this and I'm just going to run and do it my way. They're doing it and they're not doing it. This is a pet peeve of mine. You're running a business. Tax numbers. Do you give out contracts? Do you take retainers? Do you have accounting? And like, if you don't have this stuff, you're not running a business. So that's what's going to distinguish you between a business and a hobby. Is this a hobby?
Ooh.
Well, then you can charge hobby pricings of $500. If this is a business, you're going to start having those commas because you're like, because I do this and I do this and I have that and I have that. Just saying.
Somebody was listening to this episode and their wig just got snatched. Because that was such a great way of breaking that down. Like, is it a hobby? Or are you for real about this? Because if so,
Yes.
you're gonna take the time, you're gonna get your aisle planner or your honey books or whatever the thing to get your systems right, your automations right.
Yeah.
Or you're gonna be soliciting down to Facebook.
Okay.
It's up to you. It's up to you.
Lord, we need to wrap this thing up. All right, so y'all bringing the heat tonight. I'm a little hot. No, but thank you so much for giving us this great advice. Ashley was right. We definitely need to bring you back.
Anytime. Just let me know.
Yes. But we're going to move into wedding vendor love.
Yes.
So
let me get my list, because I was like, nope, I got my list. And I really had to think about this because, one, we all deserve our flowers if we're putting in the work. I'm a big proponent of that. And sometimes I know as other vendors, they feel like they aren't seen. And I'm like, you are seen. Just everybody ain't saying it. So, my first one is Vicky P. Love. She's a photographer. She is a visual storyteller based out of Phoenix, but she will travel. My second one is Shakira Dillard. She goes by Glam by Kira. One of the best makeup artists out there. She's got a great backstory. She's super cute. Listen, she makes me want to get up and put makeup on. Let's put it that way. She's very good. And then lastly is Noelle Townsley. She is a caterer here in Phoenix. Delicious food. She will do whatever she needs to do. Like if one of my grooms was like, I want like real mac and cheese, she made real mac and cheese, not that stuff out of the package. She's amazing. And she just teamed up and she bought a venue, an old Abbey, and they're fixing it up as a new venue. So she is also a venue owner. So Noelle Townsley from Fresh, from the Kitchen Catering, and Abbey on Monroe is the new venue here. So those are some of my vendor love. I've loved for a lot of other people, but those are the only 3 I picked for today. I'll save the rest for the next time I come back.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that though.
Yeah.
We need more venues. I love that.
Yes. And it is absolutely beautiful. It's very raw, but it's like, oh my God, like I have a movie. That's what it looks like. Yeah.
I love that. And that's, I think, where we're headed anyway. People want to put their own stamp on it. Those raw canvas type spaces that's the move for sure. Well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us. If any of the wonderful Hebrews that are listening want to know more about you, want to follow you, want to inquire about your services, where can they go and find you?
They can find me at my website, Cassandra Nichole Events. That is Nichole, Nichole Events. Another thing that my mother will get on you if you don't spell it correctly. And then I am on primarily Instagram at Cassandra Nichole Events. I also am on Facebook and occasionally pop up on TikTok.
Love that. Love that. Well, thank you so much again for coming on and chatting with us. Y'all will definitely be hearing her again because we are going to probably book her like immediately. Just come on back. We're going to spin the block. But y'all, thanks for listening. Definitely tune in next week for another episode. Leave us a review if you haven't done so far. And y'all have a great week. Bye.
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 Don't forget to follow us everywhere you can. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even YouTube. You can find us at HUIDOWED, which is Hue I Do Wed, or at Hue I Do Pod, which is HUEIDOPOD, on pretty much any of those platforms. In addition to that, if you want to know more about any of the amazing wedding vendors we've shouted out, or any of the really cool wedding vendors we've had on the show as guests, or just some awesome wedding vendors in general that maybe you don't know of, head to find.hueido.com. There, you're going to find over 600 wedding vendors that can help take you to your happily ever after. And no matter where you listen to Hue I Do, if you could, please leave us a review. It will help other bride-to-bes and other people in the wedding planning space find a podcast that speaks to them as much as Hue I Do speaks to you.